Alright, we talked about RWBY yesterday, however there's actually a lot more RWBY news to talk about and go over, so in this video, I'm gonna hit those topics and get us all caught up to speed. Oh yeah, and we also got a promotion with Blade Idol, so that's cool. More on that coming up though. So if you missed yesterday's segment, quick TLDR, we talked about how Rooster Teeth was getting immense backlash for including RWBY Ice Queendom episodes on roosterteeth.com for paying members, first members, and they apparently forgot or just didn't include for whatever reason the actual subtitles for people to understand the Japanese, as RWBY Ice Queendom is in Japanese and people need those subtitles, at least most. And then we also talked about prior issues with RWBY Ice Queendom, namely when Rooster Teeth somehow forgot or something to promote the show on its own premiere, and also what the VA for Blake Erin did to Tao Ubukata, one of the writers, in her apparent attempt at trying to get him cancelled / removed from the project entirely or so. Alright, we should now all be on the same page with what's been going on with RWBY Ice Queendom, especially because to me it's rather shocking actually. From what I've seen, the Japanese team has done everything that they were supposed to do without issue, at least issue known to the public. However, Rooster Teeth, who really isn't involved much at all with Ice Queendom, aside from financial logistics like licensing, etc., has caused multiple issues with Ice Queendom now. And let me repeat the point. Considering how they're barely involved, the fact that they have still managed to drum up multiple issues for the show is rather astonishing to me, yet unfortunately not surprising at all. Actually, when it comes to Rooster Teeth, I'd argue it's to be expected. And so the new topics today in this video, we've got Lupus at Lepus once again providing me lots of detailed information, thank you very much, says RWBY fanatics are now falsely accusing people of giving Volume 8 bad ratings on IMDB to make RWBY look bad. Yeah, so reality check for the RWBY fanatics. RWBY doesn't need anyone's help to make it look bad. Rooster Teeth is doing a great job of that on their own. We've also got a brand new announcement from DC about a new RWBY and Justice League crossover, and this announcement is not going so well either. So we're gonna get right to those topics in just a moment. Here's today's sponsor. Thank you Blade Idol for sponsoring this video. Blade Idol is the story of a common herb collector who stumbles onto a legendary sword and becomes a great hero. A lively 2D visual idle RPG with no room for boredom and with unique 2D characters along with colorful skills and awesome 2D animations. Features include numerous combinations to make your own characters the way you want to, utilizing such mechanics such as ability enhancements, skill improvements, cool weapons, and fun costumes. Gameplay is straightforward yet addictingly fast-paced and entertaining. Blade Idol also appeals to both solo players and online players as there is little difference in rewards between the two, allowing both types of players to find success and entertainment in-game. And now, there is currently the hot summer present event as well. When you log onto Blade Idol during the event, you'll be rewarded with an enchant stone and option enchant stone. So if you're interested in starting your adventure in Blade Idol, then consider checking out the link in the description to download and try the game, and of course also obtain your rewards. Alright, so let's go back to the RWBY IMDB thing and see what people are upset about. This person, Actors Central, says, not sure if IMDb is the best place for reviews score, and plus you need to factor in the number of people reviewing each volume. Volume 1 through 3 has a little over 1,000 reviews each, and Volume 4/8 range in only the hundreds each. Not a fair comparison considering how large the fandom is. Well, you see, your own evidence actually proves that the fandom's not that large, and has actually gotten a lot smaller, because there's like more than a 200% decrease in people rating it. And that's just, you know, one tiny bit of evidence. We could literally take a look at like the Rooster Teeth first subscription price increases and stuff like that to also make a reasonable assumption about how terrible Rooster Teeth's business is going and how the RWBY fandom has decreased. We could also take a look at the overall analytics on things like RWBY videos and just how there's a completely waning interest. And that's actually putting it very nicely. Waning is. There's a completely minuscule interest would be more accurate in RWBY compared to what there once was. And RWBY fanatics will say things like, Hero A just wants to hate on RWBY. He's just a hater or whatever. Okay, no, that's actually not the case at all. I find this stuff to be rather sad. It's very sad, actually. RWBY had so much potential. It's unfortunate that it was not utilized better. And if I sound amused covering RWBY and Rooster Teeth topics, it's because I am amused. Not at the sad state of RWBY. I'm amused at the shockingly bad business decisions that have been going on at Rooster Teeth for years now. The ardent defenders Rooster Teeth has are also rather amusing to see. You can confront a RWBY fanatic with mountains of evidence regarding Rooster Teeth's corruption, poor business practices, things like a vice president at RT even apparently abusing his spouse, and doing such terrible things to her that I can't even go into further detail about in this video. Feel free to look up Rooster Teeth and Mike Quinn though if you're out of the loop on that one. Point is, I have years worth of evidence of terrible things going on at Rooster Teeth, and I could respectfully point this out to a RWBY fanatic, and they would not care about it at all. No, they will still defend the company until their last breath, all while accusing me of being some alt-right grifter mastermind, and all the fans are just alt-right chuds or something. I don't know, they sound insane. It's really weird. However, that's literally the sort of thing that they do. By the way, a lot of these RWBY fanatics are also like Twitter police, wannabe activist types, and there's something really funny about them getting mad at me for calling out corruption at a corporation that's owned by a mega corporation, and they're the ones defending said mega corporation. Interesting. Now, going back to this Actors Central person in the IMDB thing, there was a second tweet that he made talking about the ratings being, well, it looks like essentially that there is some brigading going on. And I gotta say, it actually does look like that a little bit, as there is an overwhelming amount of 1-star reviews. Now, for argument's sake, actually, let me preface this by saying, potentially this is legitimate, and people really thought it was like a 1 out of 10. That many people did, 65.3%. However, for argument's sake, let's just say that this actually did get brigaded. I have a hunch, even if it did, the brigaders' sincere rating for this would not be much better. Probably they would rate it like a 4 or 3. Of course, that's pretty much a total guess. However, I have a hunch I wouldn't be too far off. Although personally for me, I'd give Volume 8 6.5 out of 10, maybe a 7 out of 10. That seems kind of generous though. I think Volume 8 was definitely better than Volume 7. I did not really like Volume 7 for a number of reasons I'm not going to get into here, although I will say I thought the Volume 7 finale was pretty sick. Volume 8 I thought stepped it up a lot in areas that Volume 7 lacked. Again though, I'd still give it like a 6.5, maybe a 7 out of 10. That's just me though. Anyways, here's a bit of a compilation of some more RWBY fanatics just complaining about people rating the show on IMDb. They'll come up with any sort of excuse. Look, I even admitted it probably did get brigaded. However, I don't think it's going to affect the score too much. As I said, maybe the brigaders would have rated it like a 3, maybe a 2, maybe a 4. They clearly didn't like the volume very much, even if one was stretching it, is the point. And yet, RWBY fanatics just can't accept that people dislike the show. They can't even accept that some people have the most mild opinion in the world, which is simply, yeah, you know, I used to like RWBY. It's not really holding my interest anymore, though. You could say that, such a simple, reasonable thing, and even that would set them off. As for the DC topic, this comes down to Warner, as RWBY/RT is owned by Warner, and so is DC. You will have collabs like RWBY and Justice League, which is a collab that they had in the past, actually, and I guess they're doing another one. The problem is, a business that wants to do a collaboration like this clearly thinks that there's some benefit to both of those IP, right? RWBY and Justice League in this case. That's not so much the case, though. I'm not saying DC is perfect and Justice League is perfect. I'm not so much in the know with DC, actually. I'm much more in the know with RT. What I'm getting at, though, is given how many people dislike RWBY nowadays, this sort of crossover might actually not work out so well. And let's take a look at the comments now. For those wondering why there's a RWBY crossover movie, last year they had a 7-issue crossover comic run that must have sold well enough to get a movie. On the contrary, it didn't do well at all. Oh man. The debut issue was only the 120th highest selling comic book issue in April 2021. Ranked 120th. Yeah, that doesn't seem very good. It does raise a question. Why make a RWBY Justice League animated movie crossover event then? Or crossover movie thing then? Here's my theory. I think Warner just is really desperate to try and get people into RWBY again. They still have the IP, and it's like the only thing that is of any value at Rooster Teeth for the most part. I'm obviously speaking a bit in generalizations here and being a little hyperbolic. I think this stuff is pretty evident, though, overall, even if you want to say it's a bit hyperbolic. So perhaps Warner's thinking, we got DC. DC has a big fan base, and so does Justice League. Excuse me. Let's try to do a crossover with RWBY and try to get some of these fans into RWBY. Perhaps that's the line of thought. And to be fair, also vice versa, perhaps the crossover would get some RWBY fans to become fans of Justice League/DC that weren't already. Although I do think it's very fair to say it's more so from the other direction. Main point here is their only goal might not just be making money off the film itself, it could be growing the audiences and revitalizing the brands, so to speak. The question is then, will it go well? And, well, I'm not too convinced. You can see another tweet right here, for example, criticizing the crossover, saying that they should never do this sort of crossover again, and that the first one wasn't very good either. And considering this guy's named Batman and has a Batman profile picture, I think he knows what he's talking about when it comes to DC. Obviously, I'm like kidding slightly, yet also not kidding. As we close this out, here's a couple more examples of what people are saying in response to this DC RWBY announcement. Oh, hey, I actually found a positive tweet. Talks about wanting RWBY to keep collabing with things so that men cry. Leanne, I hate to break it to you, but the only men crying when it comes to Rooster Teeth are those who are severely underpaid, overworked, and laid off. Oh, and also maybe Mike Quinn too, the ex-VP who apparently abused his wife and likely cried a whole lot when he got to prison and the convicts found his paperwork. But by all means, keep white knighting for this wonderful company. Well, I suppose that's really all I have to say on this one though. As always, thank you for tuning in. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. I'll see you there and tomorrow for the next segment.